King Misuzulu kaZwelithini is expected to address the 146th anniversary celebrations of the Battle of Isandlwana without a traditional prime minister overseeing proceedings. This event commemorates the Zulu nation's 1879 defeat of the British Army. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda, Ngcobo and Vusizwe Langa join us live now from Nquthu in northern KwaZulu-Natal. Vusi, this battle is all about the theme of triumph, and I'll start with you, Ziyanda, sorry. It's all about the theme of triumph, and we are expecting to see some dramatic reenactments. The king of the Zulu nation is fresh off a personal triumph of his own after his first wife, Queen Nquthu, failed in her legal attempt to halt his plan to take on a third wife. So let's start with the nuptials. Are they still going ahead?
Well, Iman, at this stage, at least two sources have confirmed to Newzroom Afrika that the nuptials will not be going ahead as planned this weekend for the 24th and 26th of January. The reason that has been provided is that there's still a ceremony called Godo that's taking place on the 12th of February, which is finalizing Shwama, which is the fruit ceremony. So as a matter of technicality, these two sources say that the king is still in seclusion, and there's no slaughtering that is allowed to take place until Godo takes place. So only after the 12th of February can we anticipate the nuptials to take place.
This is a big moment, and perhaps let's bring in some of, we'll come back to that again in just a moment, but I want to go to some of the colors. So thousands of people are descending on that location this morning. It is a massive moment on the historical calendar. And Vusi, just talk to us about this dramatic triumph over the colonial forces, the British colonial forces, by regiments who were armed with traditional weapons against an army that had military firepower.
Well, Iman, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers. Yes, it was 146 years ago. That was on the 22nd of January 1879, when a strong Zulu army of around 3,000 men conquered the British colonial army on this mountain, which is now referred to as a holy mountain. Yes, of course, we are expecting thousands of people, not just people from Nquthu area, but people from outside Nquthu, tourists, and as well as Amabuto, they coming here. Of course, we are expecting the reenactment of the Anglo-Zulu War, which took place on this mountain. And of course, the king as well is expected to appear here for the first time, speak to his subjects after the court battle, the interdict by Queen to stop the wedding to Queen Nomzamo. But of course, this is a very historic area, and to talk more about the history behind Isandlwana battle, we are joined by Thulani Khuzwayo. Thulani Khuzwayo is a historian, Isandlwana battle historian. Khuzwayo, thank you very much for joining us, man. Please tell us more the background history of Impi Isandlwana.
Again, greetings to the viewers. One have to look back that around this day, on the 22nd of January, which was on Wednesday, which is this day today, a battle that changed the history of the British, it took place here. It must be understood that the British were actually heading to Ulundi, which is the main kraal, the center, the synagogue of the Zulus. They wanted to go and defeat the strongness of Uzulu right in the kraal. So in their campaign to go to Ulundi, they were coming from Natal side. They crossed the Buffalo River on the 12th of January, and then they discovered this mountain as a setting camp while they were still waiting for the wagons and the supplies, which were bringing a number of food, all the auxiliaries which will be used in terms of distracting what we will call the nation of the Zulus. So without knowing that the positioning, the camp that they have chosen, already Zulus with the wind and the birds have been sending the signals to the Valley of the Kings, that Amangisi, the British, are here at this beautiful mountain behind us that looks almost like the Sphinx, which is an Egyptian, which historically proved that some of the 24th Regiment, which were here at Isandlwana, some of them, they were in Egypt, because even if you look at their war badge, they used to have a thing called the Sphinx, which was a war badge around their necks. So when they arrived here, it was coincidentally that this mountain, it's shaped like their Egyptian Sphinx. So they start setting up the tent here, let's just say roughly around 80 to 100 of the tents while they were trying to maneuver the space here. They're sending out the scouts. Intelligent will come back and report saying Zulus have been seen coming from the mountains of KwaZulu-Natal, Malakatha, and even further up Kosiphes, not knowing that they were falling into the trap, which was the main decoy that Inkosi Uncingwa have built up into. So, to give you a brief around here, this is a very historic ground where an army of Zulus, at least between 18 to 20,000, where they came down and they attacked this force of the British, where they were armed with modern weapons, the Martini Henry rifles. Not only that, but even the artilleries. They had two artilleries which were positioned not too far where we are standing, and right behind us where the mountain stands, that's where the tent were. It's quite sudden that even when the alerts, when the red flags were brought in to the chap who was in charge, Henry Pulain, that he should be sending out people to check the mountains, because there are cases that Zulus have been seen monitoring around the hills here. He didn't think about that. He said, we know where the strongest of the Zulus, because we want to fight the Zulus in the open space, in an open ground. Not knowing that actually the Zulus were already moving in, closing the gaps within the hills nearby. So around 10:30, 12, an arrival of a force coming from Rorke led by a man called Anthony Denford. History proved that he was married to the daughter of Bishop Colenso. So when he arrived there, he said, the way this camp has been set up, I've got a feeling that the Zulus must be coming around this area here. So what does he do? He started, after deploying, refreshing up water and all this thing, he started taking his army of men. A bunch of them were Basutus, some of them were Zikali's men. He started moving them out of the camp, trying to move up, because the main general, Lord Chelmsford, was already moving around KwaMagoko Mountains. As he was moving up towards KwaMagoko Mountains, Denford was following. And then the Zulu army, they come in, they cut the line of Anthony Denford, and then they cut the line of one of George Shepstein, who was moving behind the hill here. And then what happened, we say in Izulu la dumemini Isandlwana.
Thulani, some people don't know that the Zulus were also defeated at Rorke's Drift, where British colonial army successfully defended the mission.
Well, it's a two-way story. One must understand that going to Rorke's Drift, it was not an order which was brought in by the elders, or Nomagomkulo Gandaba didn't say the Zulu army must cross the main buffalo, which was used, Tugela and the buffalo were used as the main borders. So Amazulu, knowing what have just happened at Isandlwana, they were overexcited. Again, I use the term that they wanted to bring a voice, a song, to say we don't have a melody, we don't have amahubo when we return to the Valley of the Kings, because they were reserve force. Udlogo, Utulwana, Indluyengwe, they did not participate in the Battle of Isandlwana. They were reserved, led by Untwana Udabla Mazigampande, who then insisted, saying, what is your story? What do you have in your lips? What can you tell the king when we return to his Isikol? They said, no. The only way we can do, let's keep up the strength, let's keep up the gear that we have. Let's go to Rorke's Drift and finish what we started. Well, going to Rorke's Drift, they come against a force which is already fortified, a force that have already built up what we call the pyramid, where they use some millisex bags, they use some wagons, they side-tip them, and then they were creating what we call a defensive force. Again, they've got two buildings there, whereby here there were no buildings. So they used buildings at Rorke's Drift as a defensive force. So they were between the buildings and then setting up the walls on the side. That is why Zulus, they went against a high defeat of the British there. And then they start retreating back. Hence we said, Shiane Amazulu, they retreated, knowing that consciously they were reminded, King Kechwayo said, do not cross Umfula Umzinyat.
Thulani, you know, to be honest, it's my first time setting my foot here. And when you're talking about the mountains of Mamakoko, Ispezi, I know those mountains. They're just in front of me. Yeah. Why is it so important for people to come and visit this place?
Well, not just for everyone, even international, because what we see, the rising numbers here, it's more about the Europeans who seems to come here. It's very sudden that our people I don't know whether it's a case of economical driven or what, but mostly the people who are coming here are the white people from around, because they want to follow the footprint of their forefathers, even to see where they were defeated. Now, speaking to the South Africans, I'm saying to you, you need to come to this place. It's a holy place. It's a place of rebaptizing. It's a place of reconciling yourself with the forefathers who fell in this battle here. More than 2,000 Zulus were killed in this battle here. It's a battle where British were completely defeated. It doesn't fall. It doesn't get well with the British. Just to add to that, people must also understand that the Queen's colour, the Queen's colour is the flag. It's the symbol of British sovereignty. That is where it got lost. During the battle, the British, they knew that the Zulus were coming for them. They were trying to save the Queen's colour. They flee. When we had Prince Charles, today known as the King Charles, when he came visiting us here around Rorke, he said, you Zulus, you are a remarkable nation, because you not only defeated us at Isandlwana, but we even lost the Queen's colours. Guess what? Up until the 4th of February, when the Queen's colours were then found drowned in the Buffalo River, that is when they were relieved. And then they said, for the last time in the British history, they shall never take the sovereignty of the Queen's colour to any battlefield. It changed the history. And of course, that's the first time in the history where British, they start giving what we call the posthumous VC crosses. Normally, they don't give VC crosses to someone.
Really fascinating recounting of the history there. Ziyanda, I want to give you the final word on this one. It is 146 years since that moment. It's going to be another dramatic day, and we talk about the tactical prowess of the Zulu regiments. And again, to bring that theme back into the king himself, who's going to address the gathering there, his own strategy in the way that he's managed the travails of the Zulu house up until this point have been questioned. How do you think he's likely to position himself today?
Well, I can tell you, man, speaking to some members of the royal family and those who are closest to the king right now, they're saying that this is going to be a defining moment for King Misuzulu kaZwelithini in the messaging that he delivers here today at the commemoration of the Battle of Isandlwana. Yes, Iman, it's not the first time the king addresses this commemoration after having, come from the courts in 2022 at the time, soon after being in Pietermaritzburg High Court dealing with the succession issue. The king came here, and that's when, at the time, AmaZulu traditional Prime Minister Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi remarked on the fact that this is the king, this is the only person who is the rightful heir to the throne, and this should not be contested. 2 years, some 2-3 years later, Iman, we're dealing with another court challenge, this time from within what should have been his closest circle, that being one of his wives, Queen Kamaisela, challenging him in court, and in those papers describing the litigation as frivolous and vexatious, which is telling of the kind of relationship that they share, the king and his first wife in that regard, and the divorce proceedings that he has instituted. And it's going to be interesting, Iman, we'll be looking at things that perhaps ordinarily we wouldn't have looked at. So if Queen Nomza Momyeni arrives here today, is she going to arrive with the king with his security detail? Because last Saturday we were told that the king wrote a letter to the DG in the office of the premier withdrawing her security detail. There's lots of questions there. There's no AmaZulu traditional prime minister to officially introduce the king before he takes the podium. There's no official royal household spokesperson after Prince Simpiwe Zulu was also axed at the weekend. So there are a lot of things that have given a perception that the royal household is in disarray, that the king is not in control. And this is why then many have said today's address will be a key moment for the king to give leadership to the AmaZulu nation and assure them that there is a plan and vision going forward.
And we'll be watching that live with you. Thank you very much to our reporting team there in Nquthu in northern KwaZulu-Natal.